laws against, quote, causing offense to minorities, and you can wind up in big trouble. Meanwhile, LGBT activists are busy sending death threats to Mr. Margrave. Michael Harrington, SRN News.
Drug use is on the rise in the U.S., and now a growing number of people are flocking to so-called churches that center their practice around a psychedelic tea known as ayahuasca. Organizers and their legal advisors argue that a 2006 Supreme Court ruling protects them from prosecution, and participants claim they are taking part in a religious service. This is SRN News. Legal action in that train derailment in Ohio.
A federal lawsuit is trying to force Norfolk Southern to set up health monitoring for residents living near the site of a fiery train derailment along the Ohio-Pennsylvania line. The lawsuit filed Thursday by two Pennsylvania residents calls for the rail operator to pay for medical screenings and related care for anyone living within a 30-mile radius of the derailment. The lawsuit says those tests would determine who was affected by toxic substances released after the derailment. About 50 cars, including 10 carrying hazardous materials, derailed a week ago in the Ohio village of East Palestine. Keith Peters reporting.
Police in North Carolina have released body and dashboard camera footage that shows the arrest of a black man who died after officers repeatedly used stun guns on him. Daryl Tyree Williams died at a hospital after being confronted and handcuffed by officers in a southeast Raleigh neighborhood on January 17th. More details at SRN News.
The following program is sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Get ready with your legal questions and call Patrick now. 877-943-9673. Again, that's 877-943-9673. The law office is open. And now your host, Patrick Smith.
Welcome to a very special edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. That music can mean one thing and one thing only. This is our Super Bowl edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. So we will be with you live for the next hour, taking your legal questions along with your game predictions. 877-943-9673. We will be with you live to answer all of your legal questions. So feel free to give us a call now. Open studio lines, 877-943-9673. If you have a passionate prediction about the game or insight you'd like to share, you're welcome to call in as well. So 877-943-9673. As usual, you can always email your question directly to me, Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. Again, that email address is good 24/7, but also especially during the show, you can email us and we will do our very best to get to your email question live on the air. But we like talking to you in person, so give us a call now, 877-943-9673. So since this is our Super Bowl edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, we're going to talk today about estate plans of former NFL players that have made the news. So we've spent the past week doing some in-depth research into some former NFL players that have had their estate plans for one reason or another make it into the news. And we're going to start off with Mr. Gene Upshaw, who played offensive line for the Oakland Raiders and was a two-time Super Bowl champion. And he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1987. Now, the interesting thing about Gene, never had any estate planning of any kind and died 3 days after getting diagnosed with cancer. There appeared to be a last-minute will prepared, but family sued and ultimately tried to set it aside, and the case settled out of court. The lesson we can all learn from Mr. Upshaw is leaving it up to random chance is rarely the best thing for the family, because as it did in Mr. Upshaw's case, it often leads to challenges in court, which just oftentimes hemorrhages money that would have otherwise gone to your family. So we would encourage everyone to think about your estate planning. Make sure you make a great estate plan with a great estate planning attorney, and don't let your estate fall to random heirs or be subject to litigation like Mr. Upshaw's estate. So if you want to be part of the show, 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. All right, we're going to go to our very first special guest for this edition, the Super Bowl edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Our first guest was a coach and a player at USC, also a coach at Michigan State, Stanford, and then went on to coach in the NFL for the San Francisco 49ers, the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, our own Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and most recently, the Buffalo Bills. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Coach Pat Morris. Pat, how are you this morning?
Good, Patrick. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Beautiful day here. Beautiful day here in down in Indian Rocks Beach.
Yeah, Pat is actually a neighbor of mine, and I thought I recognized him because we are huge Buffalo Bills fans in our house. And when you guys moved into the neighborhood, I said to my wife, I said, "Gorgeous, I think Coach Morris lives across the street from us now." So Pat, it's great to have you on the show, and of course, an illustrious coaching career. And just open it up to you. Any special memories from your days in the NFL?
Well, yeah, it obviously you got to meet. You moved around a lot. It's the old saying, "NFL's not for long." But I've had some. But you could. Sometimes you change jobs because you advance yourself, or even though you may have won something, the ownership changed and things like that. So you just got to be ready to move along, and you get to meet some great people in different cities. And that's, obviously the people here in Tampa that I met. That's why I come down here. I'm still living in Buffalo now. I like the people there. Still have friends in San Francisco. Still have friends in Minneapolis. So, the experiences and of the people in the areas was great. And also, obviously, dealing with the great athletes, when that San Francisco, basically the quarterback was Steve Young. When I was at the Vikings, the quarterback was Brett Favre, and one of our own here, Brad Johnson, was with the Vikings. So it's really kind of neat to meet all the people and go. And in some places we won. We went to championship games. In some places it wasn't that fortunate. And so, but it was a great career, and I enjoyed myself, and I'm now enjoying retirement.
So you mentioned championship games. How many Super Bowl games did you participate in, Pat?
I did not play in any Super Bowl games. I was in two championship games that one win would have got us in. One was at the 49ers. We lost to Green Bay when Brett Favre was the quarterback at Green Bay. And then at the Vikings, we lost to New Orleans, which is the famous Bounty Gate game that got us a chance to go into the Super Bowl. So I was unfortunate not to do that. But again, I was in the playoffs many times.
Well, and they talk about how playoff football is different than regular season, but you hear coaches go into the locker room and beat that drum of, hey, we've got a job to do. Go out there and try to treat it like any other game. But can you speak to how difficult that is? Because it does have a different feel, as I understand it, when you step onto that field and it's playoff football.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. I mean, it kicks up a notch. It's just kind of it's similar to hockey when it gets to the Stanley Cup playoff hockey. It's a different pace. You're playing better teams. You've got to be so much detailed. One little mistake, because it's a one and done kind of situation. So yeah, you've got the game itself is the same, but the whole build up beforehand is when you just kind of have to motor that down, I believe, and then just be able to play your best.
So of all the cities you've coached in, and I realize you might have a bias now because of where you live, but what was your favorite so far?
I'd have to say, I mean, I really enjoyed my time. Coach Steve Mariucci was there when I was in the Bay Area with the 49ers. And, it was my first job, and we were a very successful team. I mean, Steve Mariucci got released, even though we were in the playoffs. It's one of those things, we made the playoffs, but he still was released from his job. I stayed another year there, but I really had a good time there. And then, obviously, I really did like the time in Buffalo, but it was only 2 years. We won 9 games for the first time, and the head coach opted out of his contract. And that's kind of when I said, okay, I've had enough of this. So yeah, you win, and you can't can't continue your job. So the people in Buffalo really been good to me, but I would have to still say the favorite was the 49ers.
Do you miss coaching?
You know what? I miss game day. I don't miss the long nights and work in there. As you get older, I'm just going to turn 69 this year. The long hours, if I was going to go back and coach again, it would have to be more like salted roll kind of.
Okay. Well, do you have a prediction for the big game Monday?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Yes,
Patrick,
sir.
But Here's what I look at. I still follow it. I still watch the film. I still do some consulting. The biggest thing is the Philadelphia Eagles is a team that really, that as an offensive line coach, what I was most of the time, is a very physical team on both sides of the ball in terms of their offense and defensive lines. And if they can just control the game and not turn it over, I think that part of the game can win the game for them. But the funny thing is, I have to say, the guy over on the other side, Andy Reid's a very good friend of mine. He's very innovative, and they can come up with some stuff that can really go, can put a team ahead, and they've got that quarterback that can make some magic. So if you were just going to look on paper, you'd probably say, Philadelphia, but I have a feeling that Andy Reid's going to have something up his sleeve. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs.
And I feel like with Patrick Mahomes, and nothing against Jalen Hurts, I just hate to bet against Patrick Mahomes.
Correct. It'd be like saying, are you going to bet against Favre or are you going to bet against Brady? You know what I'm saying? Because the kid does make some stuff happen, and you saw it, this whole year, for sure.
Well, I always look to you for expert opinion, and I'll never forget the day I was running through the neighborhood, and I sort of saw you out, and I said, Pat, I feel like I could have actually played in the NFL. I feel like I had a chance as a punter, and I was just, of course, joking. And I'll never forget, you looked at me and goes, "Nah, you're more like a defensive back." And I was riding high the rest of the day, even though I know you were kidding too. But I'll never forget that, and that was special. And the only regret I have, Pat, is my wife's grandparents were huge Buffalo Bills fans, and I only wish
they were.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, Papa Joe's Super Bowl was when Buffalo played Miami. And that is it. Papa Joe cheered for two teams every week, the Buffalo Bills and whoever was playing Miami. And I just know that he would have been so tickled, but I love to think he's looking down now with Nani and listening to our broadcast. And I really appreciate, Pat, you taking time away from relaxing with your beautiful wife, Kathy, and being part of the program today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And the Buffalo Bills, they had a tremendous year, and they had a lot of trauma with them back and forth. But they've got a good foundation there. They're going to be around for a long time. I think all the fans would be happy about that.
Well, I heard a lot of people doomsdaying, saying, "Hey, if they don't do it this year, they're not going to do it anytime soon." It sounds like you're more optimistic than that about the upcoming Buffalo Bills season.
Oh, yeah, I think so. They've got the tools there. They know what they have to get better, and I think they'll be around for a long time. But I appreciate you, Pat. I'll see you around the neighborhood, and let's have everybody have a nice, safe weekend here.
Pat, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
Take care, Pat. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All righty, 877-943-9673. That, of course, Coach Pat Morris, most recently of the Buffalo Bills, but also of our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you can give us a call now. Maybe you'd like to chime in on something Coach Morris said. 877-943-9673. I will say this. As far as neighbors go, we have some of the best neighbors on this earth in our neighborhood. And Pat's just another example of that. He and his wife, Kathy, absolutely terrific people. 877-943-9673 to be part of today's show. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now or email your question, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, our next NFL estate controversy that we will be discussing was Pat Bowlen, who was a Canadian-American lawyer, executive, and the majority owner of a team called the Denver Broncos. And he bought a majority interest of the Broncos in March of '84. He also owned other professional franchises in the Denver area. In the late 2000s, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and created a new trust, revoking the old one he supposedly had created in 2009. The new trust would be overseen by three non-family trustees. Short version here, multiple suits filed to ultimately set aside the later trust as the product of lack of capacity on their parts, and lots of other people joined in filing suits. And eventually, they were forced to sell the team due to the different family entities which were at play here. And that was the last thing that Pat wanted, according to what he had memorialized in his estate plan. So the lesson here: make sure that you update your documents periodically while you still are healthy and of sound mind, so that the latest version will stand up to anyone who tries to manipulate or produce a fraudulent or invalid document. So that the estate of former NFL great Pat Bowlen. 877-943-9673. 943-9673. Give us a call now. This is your Super Bowl edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Next, we're going to a very patient Charlie in Hardee County. Charlie, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking my call.
Sure, Charlie. How can we help?
I have a question about a property deed, a small piece of property that three siblings have their name on it. It was when their mother died. She did not have a will, went through probate. They agreed to put the property in all three names with a right of survivorship on it. And one of the three has lived on that property with a mobile home all these years. It's been 30 years since her death. And one of the three decided they would deed their part of it over to a child of theirs. I understood that whenever it had a right of survivorship, one could not do that. Is that correct, or can it be deeded over to someone else? Deed change.
The short answer is no. So in this particular circumstance, it sounds like what happened was when the person passed, they inherited the property. Was this the primary residence of the decedent who passed?
The mother that passed?
Yes.
Yes.
So
yes.
then more than likely it passed, and I haven't, without putting eyes on the paperwork, I can't confirm this, Charlie, but it more than likely passed by something called a homestead order, where the judge basically orders the property to directly flow to those lineal descendants, and that's to protect the property from any creditors under what we call the annulment clause of the state constitution. Short version is when they inherit that property, the default position is that they will inherit tenants in common, meaning they each own their third. But your question is, what if they took the extra step to say, hey, we are going to go out of our way and own it as joint tenants with a right of survivorship? The risk you run there is that is freely severable by one party, meaning that right of survivorship, A, B, and C own it with the right of survivorship. So meaning if A dies, A's share goes to B and C. The problem and the risk with owning property that way is A could deed their interest to D, never tell B and C, and that severs that right of survivorship. So that could be a surprise they discover upon A's death. They could do some sort of subsequent property agreement to try to prohibit that. But without something like that, Charlie, in a right of survivorship situation, each party is free to deed out their undivided portion of the estate or of the property.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what's happened. They didn't. The A was, as you say, didn't die, but just decided to deed it over to one of their children.
Well, and where they're headed, Charlie, more than likely is something called a partition action. So if they cannot agree on how to sort of come to an amicable resolution, what's going to happen is one party is going to hire an attorney or more than one party, and then they will basically be forced into selling the property in order to get their interest out of it. Hopefully they can come to some sort of agreement, because those are often be very expensive. And if they're contested, they can be even more expensive.
Yes. I think they probably come to some agreement on it. So,
right. Charlie,
okay, that answers my question.
Charlie, any prediction for the game on Sunday?
Oh, I just hope that the Eagles win. I don't like some of the other side. My preference would be Eagles.
So your preference is the Eagles. Who don't you like on the other side?
I don't care for their quarterback.
Oh,
too full of himself.
But he's got such a fantastic first name, Charlie. How can you not like that?
Well, I understand that, Patrick.
All right. Well, hey, good luck on Sunday. Enjoy the game. And Charlie, what station are you listening on down in Hardee?
I'm listening by internet with Gospel 90.3.
Oh, well, great. Well, and again, we appreciate you listening, and hello to Pastor Carter and Pastor Sonia, who are listening, and our friends out there at the Landmark Baptist Church. And we appreciate all you guys listening on 90.3 FM this morning. So, Charlie, appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a great day. All righty. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. We're live and local, happy to help any way we can. So you give us a call and we get you and your call right on the air as quickly as possible. 877-943-9673, or email me your question, Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, next, let's go to Bradenton. Let's talk to Kevin. Kevin, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Good morning, Patrick. How are you today?
I'm great, Kevin. You got a prediction for the game on Sunday?
No, I just want a good game. I want to see good competition.
So one of my other neighbors is a television executive, and every time I ask him, I say, hey, what sort of game, who do you want to see win, or what sort of game do you want to see? And he always says the same thing. I want to see a close game so it goes into the fourth quarter, and that way the advertising stays buoyed. So, yeah, you're right. It's funny what people cheer for. You have people who cheer just for the commercials. And I find when you're a television executive, it's sort of cheering for the commercials in a whole different meaning. You know, most people are just watching them for the entertainment, kind of see which ones stand out. And then you got the financial motivation behind the commercial watching as well. But Kevin, how can we help you today?
Oh, you talked about estate planning, and I see, Presley's kind of in a mess with her passing away, the daughter, and being challenged on that. Never heard you talk too much, or maybe you have, but what was the difference between doing up a will and a trust, which I already have, compared to what it's going to cost somebody for an attorney to probate their estate? I don't think they realize how expensive that can be if they would just go ahead and have you do up a trust.
It's a great point. And I think that when you consider, probate is intensely fact specific, but we look towards the statutes for sort of our markers and what kind of probate may be applicable. If it's a fairly small estate, there's something under the code called a disposition without administration. That's generally for estates of less than $6,000 ish. Then above that, you're going to have a summary probate, which could take anywhere from 3 to 4 months and, cost a couple $1,000s depending. But the big one that you hear people talk about all the time is formal probate. That's where, outside of any exclusions or exemptions, the assets exceed $75,000. Generally speaking, and it varies county to county, but generally speaking, formal probate takes approximately 6 to 14 months, and costs range in the range of 3 to 10%. And at my office, the fee for a simple will is $75. The fee for a trust package is $695. That's for an estate under the estate tax exemption, which is currently $12.9 million. And that number, has risen drastically over the last 30 or 40 years, and it's left a lot of the population behind. So more and more people are able to avail themselves of simple trust because they're not going to face any estate tax exposure, because Florida doesn't really have an estate tax, and we're under the federal rule. The exemption's so high, so people do a simple trust for $695 often to avoid that costly and lengthy probate process. But a great question, Kevin.
Yes, I've heard 3%. I had no idea it could go up to as high as 10. And I think that amazes people that don't get around to it and don't realize, that 10% of a big estate is a big bite for just some simple planning would take care of that.
Well, and if you look at the probate code, again, this does not set attorneys' fees, but they have what they call suggested reasonable fees. And the suggested reasonable fee in most estates, meaning, over 75, but under $1 million, the attorney's fee suggested reasonable at 3%. Again, that's not binding, but that's 3% under the suggested reasonable fee standard. And then the personal representative's fee is also suggested at 3% for that less than $1 million estate. That's 6% right there. And then you've still got other factors to pay in, creditors that could come in and file claims against the estate. So at the end of the day, it is a calculus worth running, because it will definitely help you predict and that's the most difficult question I face daily, Kevin, whether I'm doing a speaking engagement or meeting with clients in the office. Patrick, tell me what's going to be cheapest. It depends on your view of cost, Kevin. In the short term, the will is definitely cheapest. $75 is definitely less than $695. And it's not lost on me. $695 is a lot of money. But when you factor in the fact that $75 will is not finished, costing us time or money, in the fact that it has to go through probate potentially, that's where the trust can really yield a lot of savings for the family and be a great example of that age-old adage, an ounce of prevention can be worth a pound of cure.
Well, like you say, too, that simple probate, when you muddy up the waters, if you have family fighting, stuff like that, the clock is running. And so I can see where that would just keep adding on to the attorney fees.
Well, there's that, and there's every month that goes on, there's usually expenses, and if there's a mortgage on the house, someone has to pay that mortgage that month, the property taxes, the insurance, the electric. I mean, these expenses are ongoing, so the quicker you can administer the property, usually the lower you can keep those costs of administration.
And with a trust, you can kind of dictate a little better what you want, and it's more flexible.
I think as far as like a protracted distribution, as opposed to saying, hey, I want everything to go to this person, you want to do like what we call a staggered distribution, Kevin. So it's this person gets a couple $1,000s a month until their share is exhausted, and they can get more than that if the trustee deems it appropriate for their health, education, maintenance, and support. So we can put what we call HIMSS language in there. But you're right, you can be a little more creative with the distribution, I think, with the trust than you can with the will.
Another great show for me.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Kevin. On what station are you listening down in Bradenton?
I think it's 830.
860, The Answer.
860 out of Tampa.
Yes, sir. Well, we appreciate you listening, Kevin. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and enjoy the game tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Kevin. All right, 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. We're live and local, happy to help any way we can. I'm local Central Florida attorney Patrick Smith, and you can reach out to us now and talk to us live on our special Super Bowl edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. Open studio line, so we'll get you and your call right on the air. Or you can email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. If you have a club or group or organization that needs a speaker, you are welcome to reach out to our office and be happy to schedule us to come out and speak to your club or group. We don't charge anything for a speaking fee, by the way. So we do these public appearances absolutely gratis. And if you want to reach out to us at the office, that office line, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., 877-754-6764. Again, that's the toll-free office line to reach us in Clearwater, Sun City Center, or Sarasota, any of our other law office locations. 877-754-6764. So that is your toll-free number to reach us throughout the week. You can also always visit our website, attorneypatricksmith.com, and submit a request for an appointment directly through the website. And that's also where you can get the archived version of the show. So if you missed a show, or if you enjoyed a show particularly and want to go back and listen to something, we make it available for you absolutely free at attorneypatricksmith.com. Just click on the radio show link, and all the shows are podcast available there. So attorneypatricksmith.com. And again, the office line to reach us directly, 877-754-6764. And that's to book us to come out and speak to your group or to schedule your complimentary consultation. Speaking of speaking engagements, we have one coming up, and that will be at the Indian Rocks Baptist Church. It'll be the Solo Parent Conference. So it's a little bit over a month away. And as we get a little closer, we'll make sure that everyone has the particulars as to what time I'll be speaking. But it's a day-long event. It goes from, I believe, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So it'll be a day long of speakers focused on those living a solo parent lifestyle. So for issues facing them, and I'll be there speaking on planning for your estate and protecting your minor children for solo parents. So again, stay tuned for more information on that, but it will be hosted by Indian Rocks Baptist Church. So we will keep you apprised of that information as it develops. Talk to us on the show, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local studio line, 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. We'll be happy to talk any way that we can with you about your legal question. And today we are talking about NFL estate controversy, since this is our Super Bowl edition. And our next one is going to bring it right here to the Sunshine State. We're going to talk about Mr. Joe Robbie, who passed away owning the Miami Dolphins, and most of his estate was actually tied up in the team and the stadium. And now he had a pour-over will and a revocable trust, and the estate was north of $70 million at the time of his death. Trust was designed to pay for certain expenses for his wife, and then unfortunately she was not pleased with that particular payout, so she opted for what we call the elective share. And this ultimately triggered for the estate having to sell off assets and huge estate taxes being generated. And this, of course, led to the sale of the team to satisfy these debts. This was as recent as the 2000s, the stadium was sold for about $1 billion. So a good example of, especially if you're in that high net worth category, making sure that you really stay on top of optimizing your estate plan. So there, of course, and I always say this, the biggest mistake I see in estate planning is people simply not doing it. And then I think the second biggest mistake is people don't update it. So I think they do it once, feel like I've checked that box and it's good. And that is something good. But I think to maintain optimal efficiency, you need to sit down with your attorney periodically. I recommend every 3 years at the most. And I think that if something happens drastic in the family, the death of a loved one, new births, things of that nature, you can always call your attorney and sit down with them and say, hey, I want to go over everything now. And it may be as simple as a 10 or 15 minute conversation where you're just, okay, everything's fine, but at least you have that peace of mind. And it can avoid a lot of those terrible surprises like those that face the Robbie estate administration, where things could have been potentially set up differently to avoid that forced sale of the team. So 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. I'm attorney Patrick Smith, and this is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, our very special Super Bowl edition. 877-943-9673 to be part of the show, or email me, Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. Our next special guest on this edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show is a 7-time Pro Bowler. He was also the 20th pick, first round pick by the Los Angeles Rams. He is a member of the Florida Gators Ring of Honor, a member of the College Football Hall of Fame, a member of the Florida Georgia Hall of Fame, and probably most impressively, a member of the NFL Hall of Fame. He's probably also the only guy in the NFL who played in multiple games with a broken leg. The pride of Jefferson County, Florida. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show, Mr. Jack Youngblood. Jack, happy Saturday.
Pat, you went through a whole lot of stuff there now.
I told Barb when we spoke last night, I said, now prepare Jack. I'm going to probably make him blush because I'm going to brag about him. The accomplishments. And Jack, let's be honest, if you had done nothing else but just play in 3 games with a broken leg, including Super Bowl 14,
yeah,
I think you would still be the stuff of legend. And the one thing I didn't include was the nickname that Mr. John Madden gave you for doing that, calling you the John Wayne of football.
Yeah, yes, he did. That's his part. I mean, he was my buddy too, because we were opponents, but at one point in time. But John and I were good friends.
Well, Jack, having played in Super Bowl 14, I want to start with the obvious question. What stands out about playing in a Super Bowl? Does a memory stand out? Can you speak to how it feels differently? Tell us what it's like to play in a Super Bowl.
Well, people generally don't understand that we begin the season in the summertime, sometime in June, July, and then we begin to play and compete. And the how do I put this? The issue is one and only one thing in the National Football League when you're playing is to finish up that season with the victory in the Hall of Fame. That's the only thing that it's about.
If you don't win the last game of the season, then none of it matters. Is that what you're saying, Jack?
What I'm saying, you got to start again. You got to start again to try and win the whole issue.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl.
Well, and I think that, that begins to help you understand kind of the level of preparation that not just NFL athletes, but all athletes put in. It's not just that actual season. You're right. There's so much work that goes into it prior to playing the games. And I think that's what the greats like you show is that, you win and lose championships and you win and lose games in that off season. Jack, would you agree with that?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So Jack, now I know you have, I want to ask your prediction for the game on Sunday, but is Barb nearby by chance?
She's standing.
She's standing. Okay. Now Barb, I understand Barb has a particular affinity for a player in the game, and that has caused you to dub him with a certain nickname. Maybe you can speak to that and then give us your prediction for the game.
Good morning, Patrick.
Hey, Barb, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
So, Barb, tell everyone who your favorite I know who your favorite player of all time is. Who's your favorite current player in this Super Bowl?
Oh, my goodness, that would be Patrick Mahomes, of course.
And I'm not going to lie. I mean, because in the namesake, he's got it. And he's a great two-sport athlete. He was a baseball player, too. So I completely understand it. But that's led to Jack referring to Patrick with a certain nickname. Do you mind sharing that with the listeners?
Oh, you caught me off guard there, buddy.
That's okay, Jack. What do you call Mr. Mahomes?
Barb's boyfriend.
That's so Barb must really like Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does.
And you guys are out. You're out in Arizona right now, correct?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you getting up early to talk to me. Barb, did you get to see Pat Mahomes?
Oh, no, but I know I'll be one of the first faces he sees when he gets into the Hall of Fame. I may have to wait a little while to see him, but that's okay. And now you need to understand that my attraction to Patrick is based on, because I could be his grandmother. Mm-hmm. But my attraction is the way he throws that ball. It doesn't matter who's going where, he's going to get that ball to that man. And it has always, since Jack and I have been together, he's kind of taught me to hate quarterbacks. So, but Patrick is so amazing that Jack even likes him.
And that's saying something for a defensive end to like a quarterback.
Absolutely.
Well, and I, of course, we were talking off air. I have a similar kind of story where, my wife and I years ago were watching the movie The Blind Side, and, Nick Saban. And by the way, Jack, just for you, I am wearing my Gator gear today. So I have my Gator gear on, and
good.
And then my wife, we were watching, and there's that scene where all the college coaches are attempting to recruit Mr. Orr, and at the end of the day, Nick Saban pops up, and my wife goes, that's a good looking older guy. And I looked at her and I said, gorgeous, that's Nick Saban. That is the devil as far as we're concerned. We do not refer to him as a good looking guy. So I kind of understand what you're dealing with, but of course, Coach Saban, probably the greatest college football coach of all time. But as Gator fans, I don't think we really feel good acknowledging that, Jack, but we have to give credit where it's due. And I think it's the same with Mr. Mahomes. Just such an amazing talent.
Yeah, it makes me laugh because for just a few of these guys, there is no gray. It's either black or white, and you either love them or hate them, one or the other.
Well, and so Jack, because of your particular style of football and that tenacity, the decision to play, even though you had the broken leg, can you walk us through that? Like, what sort of voices are going through your head that get you back onto the field when you suffered that kind of injury?
People at first, they used to look at me and go, something's wrong with that boy. What are you doing? In fact, my own doctors, when I broke it in the Tampa ball game, and it went into it was right before the halftime. and went into the locker room, and Clarence Shields, who loved us like we were their children, those doctors did, and Clarence comes back out, gives it to me, says, "Look, see there, you got a broken leg there." And I'm sitting on the table, and I said, "Hey, Clarence, I told you that on the way in." I mean, and I said, "Take this dadgum thing up. We've got 30 more minutes here, and this is division playoff." He goes, "No, Jack, you didn't hear me. You didn't understand. You've got a broken leg." I said, "Clarence, I told you that." And he laughed and looked at me, and he goes, "I don't know how to tape."
That's unbelievable. Jack, it blows me away, and it causes me to realize that we just need more of that. We need more Jack Youngbloods in the world who take that sort of devastating injury and say, it's going to take more than that to stop me. And I remember the first time we met, and I saw your full name was actually Herbert Jackson Youngblood III. I said, you know what this needs in front of it is it sounds like it needs to be Colonel Herbert Jackson Youngblood III, because you just have that sort of like almost military style toughness to you, Jack, where no man's left. And my father actually just called into the show and left a note with production that he remembers watching that game where you broke your leg and went on to play. So my dad still remembers that to this day. And it's one of those things. Go ahead.
Say hello for me.
I will. I'll pass along your regards to Dad, and I know it's early there, and I appreciate you and Barb getting up early. But final predictions for the game on Sunday, Jack and Barb, if you don't mind.
Buddy, we're here in Phoenix, and we're going to get on the airplane early Sunday morning, and I think I'll be in my. Well, I know I'm gonna be home, but I think I'll be in my lazy boy, and about I think it's start playing. The time is 3:00. I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what time the kick is, but who do you think is going to win, Jack?
All right. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll keep us on the edge of our seats all 60 minutes, and I think Patrick's going to be able to pull it out like he's done. That's how he got there.
Barb, I don't even know if I need to ask because I know the answer. But go ahead, Barb. Your prediction.
There is no thinking about it. Patrick will take home the trophy along with all his teammates, but it'll be something like 27-14.
27-14. Barb Youngblood called it here first on the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Barb, Jack, I treasure the fact that you guys made a time, especially given the time change. I know it's early out there, and I really, really appreciate you guys taking time to be part of the show. So thank you so much.
We'll talk at you later, buddy.
Talk to you soon, Jack. Barb, have a great day.
Thank you.
See you later.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, NFL Hall of Famer, Mr. Jack Youngblood. So if you want to follow up on something Jack commented on, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. All right, let's go to Bradenton. Let's talk to Michael. Michael, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. How can we help you today?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Michael, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you. First of all, thank you for being a resource in the community. I can't tell you how often support is needed where people just don't know who to trust. They don't know who to turn to, what questions to ask. So appreciate that you're doing this.
Well, Michael, I appreciate your kind words. Callers like you are exactly the reason why we do this. So how can we help you today?
Yeah. So what are you advising for elderly parents that are in the estate planning stages where they're trying to figure out how to avoid the spend down for nursing home, certainly property, rental property, other properties where they just don't want to have to spend everything down, where they're uninsurable, or maybe they're borderline insurable for long-term care insurance. But, that product is kind of priced out of the marketplace at this point. And I think long-term care, there's a long-term care partnership in the state of Florida. But, what are you advising? What type of planning could be done for the elderly in the state of Florida according to state law?
I mean, it's a spectrum, Michael. So we offer a complimentary consultation so parents like the ones you're describing can come in the confidentiality of the office, go over the financial intimacies of their estate, and then we'll give recommendations. But usually it's some combination of setting up a good will, a power of attorney, maybe a trust, and some sort of infrastructure to run around and through all their assets and income, so that should that day come where they have to enter long-term care planning, we can hit those three prongs of need, asset, and income, either by them acting on their own behalf, or if they're incapacitated at that time, having duly empowered someone that they trust through one or more of those instruments to be able to reposition things as optimally done to protect them and their family.
Outside of the 5-year look back you're talking.
Yeah, I think you can do a lot of things without triggering the 5-year look back period. I mean, the most common thing that I see that triggers that look back period is where people just gift away massive amounts of their estate. That not only triggers the look back in many circumstances, but it can also trigger gift taxes, which can be catastrophic as well.
Sure. Is there anything specific in Florida that makes Florida more conducive to this type of estate planning than maybe if they were residents in Connecticut or a different state?
Yeah, I can't speak to any of the other 49 or U.S. territories. I don't hold a law license there, but in Florida, I think our statutes are designed for what I call maximum versatility. They sort of give you the best shot at doing the best you can to protect the most assets as possible, Michael.
Yeah, because there's snowbirds now, and I'm just wondering, maybe it makes sense to switch state of residencies.
They should go ahead and consult attorneys in both states so they can compare apples to apples and kind of run a pro forma analysis. If I did it there versus if I do it here in Florida.
Understand. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you so much. And again, appreciate all you're doing. And no Super Bowl picks for this weekend. I'm like the other caller. I just prefer to see a good game, and hopefully no major injuries.
All right. Well, we appreciate you calling in and abstaining from voting. All right,
you.
Michael, have a great day. All righty, this is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith, 877-943-9673. We're going to quickly go to Therese in Tampa. Therese, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for taking my call. It should be quick. The difference between a trust and a will for probate. I'm wondering if you do a trust and you put all these things into a bucket, or you want to call it, your insurance or your accounts, whatever, into a bucket. I use a bucket. That's a good term as a trust. And what if you want to use some of the things from that bucket, take them out? How does that work? Is that difficult once you put them into the trust?
Yeah, without looking at it, Therese, I can't speak to your particular trust, but in general, standard trust, like a simple living revocable trust, does not restrict your access to those assets at all. You can spend and choose and use them as you need to.
Oh, okay. That's good.
But if you want a second opinion on it, just call and make an appointment with your attorney or with me. If you don't have an attorney, we'll give you a good opinion on what your trust says, okay?
Okay, one other question is, if I have a house, so if that house really, if I don't go by the trust way, then the house will be a big burden on somebody else to sell it. What's a good idea is for me to move into a retirement place before I get, power of attorney, before I'm incapable.
Maybe, Therese. It's really going to depend on whether or not the home is your homestead. Selling it can sacrifice that homestead status. So again, I encourage you to get a consultation with a good estate planning attorney, okay?
Because otherwise, if I move into a place, the electricity, if I leave it to a will, somebody else is going to have a big burden, pay the electric bills and everything else.
Therese, I got to wrap up the show, so I'll have to let you go, okay?
All right.
All righty. Have a great day. All righty. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Jim in Sarasota, stay on the line. I want to talk to you off the air. I see that you want to talk about the ethics of football. So just hold on the line, Jim, and I'll talk to you off the air. I don't think we'll have time to get to it because I can tell that's not going to be a quick call, but I definitely want to see what you have to say, Jim, and maybe follow up next week. So this has been the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. Reach me at the office, 877-754-6764. Very special thank you to Coach Pat Morris and Jack Youngblood for appearing on today's show. Everyone stay safe. God bless. Go Gators.